Yes, guys, welcome to FPL Insight. This is Chasing Green Arrows. I'm Gianni, the FPL guy. I'm joined by usual co-host, Mr. Dean Jones, but also a special guest for one night only, the host of the original FPL show, Mr. James Richardson. James, how are you?
Just the one night, is it, Jenny?
Well, we can go again if we do well to this evening, maybe.
Let's
Is it
see.
like an audition?
Yeah. No, but I'm here for tips and expertise. So let's rock. No, it's a delight to be here. Thank you very much for having me, Dean and Jenny.
Yeah, very excited to have you, mate. In
Cool.
today's show, guys, we're going to be talking, obviously, like looking back on the weekend just gone. We're going to be reviewing game week 9. We'll look ahead at all of our teams for game week 10. We'll have the eye test feature as always. We'll be answering your questions as always. But also, we'll be quizzing James on how he got into FPL, maybe some Football Italia stories as well. Dean's off to Milan at the weekend. I look forward to hearing more about that. But do get your questions in and give us a like and a subscribe while you're there, guys. Thank you for joining us this Monday evening. We'll be off air before the Leicester fixture at 8 p.m. Dean, how was your weekend, mate?
Yeah, we can't miss that one. We've all got Maddison. My weekend wasn't very good, mate, because I support Fulham and I was at Fulham. And yeah, I took my little boy, 4 years old, trying to get him into Fulham, get down to 10 men after 7 minutes. He's crying when you go 4-0 down. Yeah, it was okay. We'll go over it. You got to get used to these days early, right? If he's going to support Fulham, it can't be like Mitrovic scoring 44 goals in a season all the time. But away from that, yeah, I had a good day out apart from the football. That was nice. And I had a good week of FPL, which we will look at in a bit. Most decisions paid off for once.
Yeah, you've blown me out the water this week, still with players to play as well. Trying to sell Fulham to your 4-year-old son is tricky when they go down to 10 men after 5 minutes, and then Mitrovic, the star player, goes off after 40. James, are you a Mitrovic owner? Did you go with Mitro on your wild card?
I'm just thinking, like, Dean's son probably can't count. What? How far can he count?
He's quite good at counting, but he doesn't really understand how football scores work generally.
Could you not just have sold him an entirely different narrative about what was happening on the pitch?
It was more. He was upset because he knows where the other fans sit, and because they're all cheering. He came to the game against Brentford, and he realised that when we score, everyone around you cheers. So when the ball went in, he kind of got excited because there was a goal right in front of us.
Yeah.
Everyone around us was not very happy, and he could see all these people. So then started to cotton on. It's really interesting watching him learn right in front of my eyes. Yeah.
If you think he's miserable now, wait till he starts FPL, because that's when the pain.
He starts next week.
And speaking of starting FPL, James, when did you start? Presumably, when you got the call up to present the FPL show, that was it.
No. I got the call up because of my expertise at the fantasy game.
Of course.
No, genuinely. I mean, I was already. So that show was made by this company called IMG, who made the Premier League kind of like worldwide content, and I was already working there doing other things. But I would have conversations about FPL as you do with the other people there, and I was doing reasonably well. So when they decided to put a show together, they said, do you want to present it? So I said, yeah, for sure. And so I did. It went for about 6 years, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask what year that was. It must have been. Yeah, I remember watching around. I don't know, probably around 2015, and it was you, Jules, and then Mark Southerns for the first 2 or 3 seasons, wasn't it? Mark was the only expert on.
He was the only expert. The whole thing. I mean, looking back now, it's not that long ago, but it seems very kind of rudimentary. The show back then, it's a little bit kind of hospital TV, but by the end, with the sofas and top-notch,
yeah,
like yourself,
it feels like it was well ahead of its time now. When you consider like the amount of FPL content there is now, and like the need for it, I think back then you probably wouldn't have. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Expected FPL to become like it is. It's only a matter of time. I feel like before the ticker on a Saturday on BT Sport or whatever has like the goal scorer, the assist, and the points gained.
I think you're absolutely right there. And I'm not sure when they started doing it, but Match the Day now on their highlights and summaries put the assist on as well. And I'm sure that's for all the people frantically searching to see.
Why would you care otherwise?
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing, was it? Like 10 years ago.
No,
you didn't even really call it that.
Assists until... Yeah, I mean, very, very recently, certainly.
I remember when you were a kid, you'd be like, oh, I set one up. Like, you wouldn't really even call it an assist. You'd be like, I scored one. Oh, and I set one up as well. You wouldn't even really call it an assist here. Like, it's just a new thing that I swear is just off the back of FPL, but it's fun, isn't it?
It's completely changed the way we watch football, though. Like the growth of FPL has led us to watching football differently. Because you go into any pub up and down the country on any given Saturday, you see people celebrating a goal, and the first thing you hear out loud, someone has asked who got the assist to one of their mates, and we're all thinking it. And same as who's on 3 bonus points. Oh, my clean sheet's just gone. James, you watch. Obviously, you watch Premier League football, but you watch a lot of European football too. Do you watch Premier League football very differently to how you might watch Serie A or the Bundesliga? Because you're not invested from an FPL perspective, it must be a very different watch.
Well, that's the thing. There's this whole other dimension to watching. I mean, it completely changes the way you watch football, not just for the players that you've got, but how much you want every other player to fail spectacularly. You don't want a clean sheet for any defender that you don't have, particularly ones that you think might have been bought down on anyone you're in a league with. You don't want innumerable strikers to score goals or produce assists. I mean, it's all totally weighted on the 2 players you brought in that week or the 15 you got in your squad, and everybody else can frankly have to put it politely, have a stinker. But I mean, we all go through this. It's and the FPL, I mean, the Premier League is obviously well aware of this. It massively ramps up the level of interest in games that you would otherwise have really only the merest of concern about.
100%. Well, even tonight, like Leicester v Nottingham Forest. I mean, it is a good game, like for a purist, or if you live in that area of the country, like it's a massive fixture. But beyond, like I'll mainly be watching it because I want James Maddison to score. Like that's my thing. And obviously, like, is one of these managers going to get sacked if they lose? Like that's an alternative way to look at it. But yeah, it's mainly because you have an attachment, and it has made it more interesting because those smaller fixtures. They have something about them, and it's much more fun.
Yeah, for sure.
FPL Focus in the chat, he's an Arsenal fan. He said to watch your own team and then turn attention to other games for more points is so funny, and you just absolutely do. I think we've probably all been there. And guys, do get your questions in for James. We'll get to them. If we can't get to them live, we'll come back to them at the end of the show. Really keen to involve you guys in this conversation. Do hit that like button if you like what you're seeing. And obviously, if you're not already subscribing, please do. But we do these shows every Monday, every Friday at 7. We're a fairly new YouTube channel, Dean and I, and we'll have special guests jumping on every now and then. And James, I think you're the guest I've been most excited about. We've had some big names on, so thank you for joining us this evening.
No, not at all. We've worked together a bunch, and you've helped me. You've shaped in many ways my team over the last couple of seasons. So just delighted to come and.
He's your hype man now, James. Trust me. Like the build up to the day, he was a proper hype man for you on Friday.
You might assume I know something about football and FPL from me gaining an employment through talking about it. He's seen behind the scenes. He's seen the little figure kind of working the levers of Oz behind the curtain, if you like. And I've got only the barest understanding of what's going on in front of me.
Love that. Where do you go to for your tips now, James? Because presenting the FPL show, obviously you had 2 experts in every week. You're consuming a huge amount of information.
Too much information, Jenny.
Probably.
No, I genuinely believe I did pretty well before before we started doing the FPL show, and then when I started doing a show which was an hour of listening to people telling me all the players I should have, I've got a very weak and impulsive character. I mean, I would go out and just get those players and shelve. And then the next day I'd be maybe doing the FPL podcast before they bin me off that. And then I'd get those players in as well. So I was just so confused, So now I've noticed this season that show's been it's become digital. Essentially, it was killed off by the incredible rise of YouTube programs such as this. Anyway, now that I'm kind of on my own, as it were, I mean, I go to all the usual places, Chasing Green Arrows, don't know if you've heard of them. Some of the other less reputable sites. The Premier League's one, which is pretty comprehensive. And I kind of trawl. And this weekend, for example, on Thursday, I was doing my wildcard a little bit late. So I had a page where I just wrote down all the names that people were saying and kind of went through and went, yeah. And probably the same stuff you do. And then I filter it through. Yeah. But now back to my kind of one transfer a week type thing. It'll be more, I think, on looking at the FDR. I think is my principal thing.
Yeah, we love the FDR. Dean and I had a big chat about the fixed difficulty rating the other day when discussing Solanke, because we didn't understand why so many on their wildcard were going Solanke, and they were only doing it because of the FDR. But of course, you have to take the FDR with a pinch of salt, because every time Bournemouth had a green fixture, their opponent also had a green fixture.
Yeah. No, that is a very fair point. The color coding needs some, needs to be taken with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, I think so. Nice question. We'll answer this question and then we'll go into reviewing the game week just gone. We'll be talking Manchester Derby. We'll be talking North London Derby. We're going to give some eye test reports of some really good players Dean and I have been watching who should be on your radars. But first, we have to just mention Serie A, because so many watching tonight will know you from the 90s and noughties on Channel 4. We'll talk more about that later, because I want to probe you on it. But in terms of top line, who was the best striker you watched in Serie A? Because boy, there were some names.
There were, weren't there? But who would? I mean, I know who I would say, but who would you think, Johnny?
I think you're going to say Batistuta.
Really?
Oh, okay. So not an out and out. Well, I mean, Totti, Del Piero are two of the 10s I absolutely love.
Well, okay, so Totti and Del Piero, I have a slight difficulty in calling them a striker per se. Certainly Totti. I mean, I guess Del Piero fits into that category. Batistuta definitely does, but Van Basten for me.
Oh, fair. Yeah. Of course.
Because, his career was kind of curtailed right at the peak. So you never had, for example, Batistuta, the season after they won the Scudetto, it was a horror show, madam.
Yeah.
So that kind of colours a little bit your view on it. But yeah, MVP, Il Cigno di Utrecht.
I think he was he 28 when he retired? He was young, wasn't he?
Yeah,
He was young. That Milan team with all their Dutch stars, Hullet and Rijkaard, and then Van Basten too. Dean, who was yours?
My favourite Italian from back then.
Yeah.
Wow. I loved Baggio. He's not a 9, is he? He's a 10, proper 10. But Baggio was like one of my first memories really of any football outside of England, to be honest. Like those odd moments that you would get. But yeah, Baggio was just... He played differently. Like that was different. We didn't have players like that. He just stood out, and I loved it.
Yeah, and in the chat, FPL River said the original Ronaldo. Yeah, I completely get that. Guys in the chat, let us know, who was your favourite striker from the 90s noughties in Serie A? I'm really keen. There we go. Oh, nice. Nuclear Atom says he wasn't even born in the 90s. Nuclear's watching from Bangladesh tonight. I only managed watching old clips of James on YouTube, reading the newspaper and talking about the weekend Serie A. Yeah, and Damien says George Ware. George Ware, wearing that shirt is one of my first football memories of 1995 when he ran the ball from his own area. And Roberto Baggio is another one from that missed penalty in 94. I remember watching my dad's reaction to that as like a 8-year-old. He was a very angry man. I was meant to be in bed, and I remember watching from the top of the stairs. My dad was in front of the TV, and obviously this is the final USA 94. Baggio, who was player of the tournament, arguably takes the penalty that needed to go in, and he skied it over.
It's funny, you remember where you were, and I remember I was only a kid too, but I remember like the house we were in, like a friend's house. We'd gone around to watch the game. I remember the exact seat I was in. I remember the kind of TV I was watching that moment. I couldn't tell you anything about the rest of that game, but I remember that moment. Isn't it weird how that sticks with you? Like,
yeah,
it was quite a forgettable game. That it wasn't the greatest of finals, and the shootout was the thing. But Italians were quite conflicted over that final. Actually, I mean, a significant proportion of Italians, although it was the final and they were spot kicks away from being world champions, the notion of Sacchi coming back as world champion upset Italians, a lot of Italians, so much that supposedly even some pretty famous players were actually rooting for Brazil. But anyway, that's a story for another day.
Wow. Okay. I'm not surprised to hear that, knowing what Italy did. And we'll move on from Italy in Italia 90, when Maradona played Italy in the semi-final in Naples, and he converted half that Italian stadium into being Argentina fans because he said the rest of Italy takes the mick out of you. I know all of this from James's amazing podcasts on Football Italia in the 90s.
Oh, Galazzo, that one.
Yeah, the Galazzo series, of course.
Well,
I've seen.
If you are interested in old football stories, it's free, and give it a listen. Why not?
Good stuff. Love that plug. Just to mention a few names. Aninda said Pirlo free kicks. Matty said Totti. Damien Maldini, a centre back or left back, but legend.
Scalacci's a good shout from Kevmac. I like Scalacci. I almost forgot about it. That Skilacci was cool, wasn't he? That was a proper striker.
Toto, yeah, he was amazing.
We didn't even mention FPL Salah, friend of the FPL show, Ronaldo, R9, of course, Inzaghi, Shevchenko, Adriano, Bierhoff, Rakoba. So many names.
Oh,
so many names. Maybe one day we'll do a Football Italia special on chasing green arrows. That would be amazing. For
Erling Haaland had nothing on this lot, did he?
Oh, that tees us up nicely. Let's have a look at our eye test feature from the weekend just gone. Here we go. Dean, kick us off. Haaland, unbelievable. We've not seen anything like it ever, have we?
No, he's got 3 home hat-tricks in a row. You don't do that in Sunday League, do you? Like, if you've got a player in your Sunday League team, or as a kid, or even as an adult, whatever, and they're doing that, then they go and play somewhere else because they're just too good, or they have already dropped down from like professional football. It's ridiculous. I can't actually find the words to describe what he is doing. His mentality, I don't know if you saw it, he did it at the end. He's done it at the end of a couple of games now, but did it this time. The cameraman comes on, and I do feel sorry for the cameramen that have to come on at the end and get right in his face and like twist around him and stuff, because Haaland hates it. He hates it. And he shoves them out the right, and he gives them the stare every time. He like shoves them to the side, looks at them and moves on. It's like, don't get near me. Do not get near me. I'll tell you if you can talk to me. And it's not right now. I'm going to look for Phil Foden, give him this match ball that he deserves, and then I'll talk to you all in a bit. It's so funny, like this winner's mentality that there's very, very few players. I think when Eric Cantona first came over to English football, he brought something different about him. Thierry Henry brought something different about him. This doesn't happen very often, does it? But to land at such a young age, for people to be like, yeah, okay, mate, you did it in these countries. You won't do it in the Premier League. You won't do it here. He's turned it into a Farmers League in about 8 weeks.
A We the Farmers League. I love that. James, you watched him a lot in the Champions League at Salzburg. You watched him a huge amount at Dortmund in the Champs, doing so well, averaging a goal a game. Did you have any doubt that he was going to come into the Premier League and keep that goal a game or even better ratio up?
Well, yeah, I did. I mean, a little bit. Because, but not so much. I didn't get him in game week 1. I mean, I've had him in since the start.
Yeah.
But the Community Shield, because you basically, it's silly the way that we react to football matches, but particularly the first kind of semi-official match back after the summer, when you've been waiting 2 months or whatever it is to have some verdicts on how things are going to be, and you've got 90 minutes to go on. That's fine. It's all clear to me immediately that Haaland's amazing, but the way that Man City plays and Pep's so obsessed with his little mechanisms and stuff, it's not going to dovetail properly. So he's great, but he costs an absolute fortune, and I'm not sure it's going to work. Or maybe it'll take some time. You know, maybe him and De Bruyne are not going to see eye to eye. Maybe there's going to be a bit of all these kind of things. But it was complete nonsense. And the guys are, as you say, I mean, he's just generational. He's I don't know what it means for FPL, because it's effectively destroyed the captaincy.
He's killed it, hasn't he? Yeah. Well, it's back to when, I guess, Aguero, but there was that time when Aguero had to be your captain, wasn't it? And
but not to the extent that.
Not to the extent. Even back then, I remember our league, like our mini league, we got to the point where like, should we ban anyone from picking Aguero next season because it's making it boring? And like, here you are, 8 games into the season, you're kind of like, from Christmas, when the next wild card, should we say you can't have Haaland?
Yeah.
Because there's no point. I saw somebody mention earlier on, like, he was in the top 200k before the weekend, didn't have Haaland, and now he's like below 1 million in overall rank. Yeah. Because everyone's got him. But you can't not now, can you? You can't not. It's too big a gamble.
Would you ever captain anybody else? I mean, there was supposedly 15 people who triple captain Trossard in quite the most inspired decision ever.
I love that.
These people are trolls.
Yeah, those going for the top score of the weekend, so they get their prize from the Premier League. But I mean, some good managers have captained Maddison tonight, and there's a fair few. There'll be 1 or 2 in the chat that probably captained Salah. Mark Southern's captained Kevin De Bruyne. He owned Haaland, but owning him wasn't enough. When you're 80% owned, and the vast majority are captaining you get a negative loss every time that player scores unless he's got the armband. And that effective ownership really does matter. And I don't think we've ever seen a player at 80%. Haaland's there.
The other thing about Haaland, just the amount of times that we've discussed Man City assets, and they've had so many great players, so many really productive players in FPL terms. There's always been this risk. There's always been this doubt about what Pep Roulette might mean. You'd want to bring in, say, a Foden or a Mahrez or whoever it was, but Pep Roulette would do for you. It would sow the seeds of uncertainty. With Haaland, there doesn't seem to be any question of Pep giving him a rest, even if Champions League is kind of...
No, and I don't think he'd accept it. I don't think he would have it. Like, for example, this weekend, his next game is Southampton at home. So he's got 3 hat-tricks in a row already. One of them's just got in the Manchester derby. Now he's got a Southampton team who are rock bottom at the moment. The manager's fighting to save his job. I'm sure if you're the manager, you might be like, get rid of me before this one rather than let me go out for this one. Yeah. But he's going to want to score. And then the week after that, it's Liverpool. And to be honest, he'll probably score a hat-trick against them as well.
Yeah, the way Liverpool defending, I still think we'll all be captaining Haaland against Liverpool. And look, Man City, my learnings from that Manchester derby was you need triple City in your team. And many are put off by the fact that City don't play in game week 12. I get that. But it can be for 1 week only. You have triple City on your bench. And if you've got an Arsenal player who also don't play in game week 12, then you just play 10 men. I don't mind that.
Well, so, Gianni, I was concerned about this because I did have triple City and I had the classic João Cancelo, Kevin De Bruyne, Haaland triumvirate. Yeah. And when I did my wild card, because I didn't have the money elsewhere, I went down to just Haaland and kind of went fingers crossed. And it didn't work out too bad because De Bruyne got 1 assist. I swapped him out for Salah because I was convinced that Liverpool were going to return.
Yeah.
But, that didn't work out. He got an assist, so that was the same thing. And Cancelo didn't get a clean sheet. So I don't know that you need 3. With that empty fixture coming up in, what is it, game week 12, so that's, what, two rounds from now?
Yeah, I mean, De Bruyne did get that second assist on Salah, so he got 8 points, De Bruyne. So it was marginal, but then
second assist?
He did, yeah. And then Foden, obviously, for those that were on Foden instead of De Bruyne, they completely lucked out there too. But just knowing how many goals City are scoring, I feel like you want a couple of players in that.
So who's the 3 then? Who would you go for?
I mean, I've got Haaland, De Bruyne, and Cancelo. If it was Foden instead of De Bruyne, I think that'd be fine. Dean, you've got Cancelo and Bernardo. And Bernardo got an assist or 2.
Yeah, Bernardo got an assist. Do you know what? The biggest disappointment about that blank game week is that game was supposed to be Arsenal Man City. That's the game I want to see in exactly that stage of the season. I want to know if this Arsenal team really are able to mount a challenge, because they're doing brilliantly, but they lost 3-1 to Man United. Man United was 4-0 down at the weekend by half time. And I just don't think that it's enough to convince me that they can actually mount a title challenge. It's brilliant. Like, the elevation of the team is brilliant, the growth of them. But to actually compete with Man City for the title, or even in a match, is a completely different situation and scenario. So I would have been fascinated to that game. I'm really disappointed that we're not going to see it in that week. And God, can you imagine trying to pick our teams as well, like around that fixture? Like, it would have been such a headache, a different headache to the one we've now got to get rid of all their players for that game week.
Yeah, it's funny. Loads got rid of Jesus on wildcard. When I wildcarded in 8, I did. James, you got rid of him in game week 9. He's still scoring goals. What was your take from that North London derby, James? Like, Arsenal look another level on top of Spurs. I mean, it wasn't Conte's best moment, and Arsenal looked like they're securing top 4 with ease this season.
Yeah, they do look good. I mean, they look for real, and we've had so many false dawns, I guess, with Arsenal, that you have a certain tendency to be wary with them. But I think this time around, there's no question that they have crossed the line, turned the corner, whatever it is, and they deal with issues, and they can bounce back from losing against Man United and then go and beat Brentford and win this absolutely huge game. The thing was, I mean, it was a 3-1 scoreline, and effectively Conte waved the white flag about, 20 minutes from the end, when he took off pretty much all his attacking players apart from Kane, and went, have this one then. There's that. On another day, if a couple of things had gone their way, there was a Richardson moment early on. If that red card hadn't happened, would it have been such a resounding win for Arsenal? I don't know, but that's the way the game went. I think they look really good. I slightly regret taking Arsenal players out, but once again, they blank in 12, and that was kind of my thinking there. I think otherwise, and probably after the World Cup, when we see what happens, then I'll be back with them.
Yeah. I was glad to ditch Martinelli. I gave it the big one on Friday. Said, I'm ditching Martinelli. These are the reasons. I was relieved when that early shot was saved. And then,
what do you guys think? Do either of you have Granit Xhaka at the moment?
No, but he's been a good call. Like, I don't think I've seen him play this advanced. I've not, he's got a new role, wasn't he? He's like late runs into the box, that left-hand channel. He looks good on. He's shooting
And he's still
loads.
cheap, isn't he? He said, "I'm just opening up a tab and having a
Yeah,
quick
he must be
look."
I think
cheap.
is he
How much is he?
5.2 or something?
Ooh.
I mean, he's just not an asset you would normally look for, is it? Like in any past
Normally
season.
when you got like a little bit of change and you go through the midfielders, and it's Granit Xhaka, you think, yeah, no. But now I think I might.
I've got so much admiration for the way that he's come back from that moment when he was booed off. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen someone turn around how they're viewed by a fan base like this, ever. I mean, I know fans can be fickle, but he was done. Like that day, he was done. And now, he's a proper cult hero at Arsenal, and I've got a lot of time for that. And you're right, he's definitely become someone that could become a little cheap differential at some point. Yeah, Jesus is one I've stuck with, and I'm going to stick to it because I keep seeing people jumping off of him thinking that this is the end and it won't continue. I just don't see any reason why it won't continue. I thought he was brilliant.
He's getting chances galore. Dean, you're at Fulham, Newcastle. Firstly, Newcastle assets, some of them look good. Almiron's like a 5.1 midfielder. He could have had a hat-trick if it wasn't for VAR for that third goal. We started every game this season, Almiron. But the Mitrovic injury as well, what's your take on that? So many in the chat will want to know and have Mitrovic. We know he's flagged. We know he picked up a knock for Serbia. He managed 38 minutes or whatever it was. Do you think he'll be all right? Have you heard anything from the Mitrovic camp?
Not since the game, no. I mean, what I'll say is like there was no real point. But at the stage he went off, the game was dead. And if he was feeling anything, it made sense that he goes off. And there was probably part of that in it. Mitrovic is obviously not the sort of guy that is going to want to miss many games. He's one of the toughest players you'll ever come across. And Fulham's luck, success hinges on him being available. And also he's got that World Cup in the background to consider as well, though. And that's the thing that is always going to be on the back of my mind now, because players actually, where I would normally be like, okay, well, Mitrovic will just play through the pain. But he'll only do it to a certain point, won't he? Because he's got a World Cup to think about, which is only about 6 weeks away now. And players cannot risk their fitness for that tournament. And that's the thing that would niggle away at me right now if I was a Mitrovic owner. Fulham got West Ham at the weekend. And one thing I will say from the Fulham Newcastle game is Callum Wilson was obviously back. He's so strong. Callum Wilson, he's like an ox. Like the way that he's barging people around and stuff. Like that was one thing. I haven't seen Callum Wilson play in the flesh for a while. He definitely was one of those that, as you say, if you look at an eye test and you see a player in real life and you see something a bit different from what you see on TV, we all know what a good finisher he is, but there's more to him than that. He really bullied people in that match.
Yeah, lovely to see in the chat as well. Holly Shander's just joined us as well. Hey, Holly, hope you're well. Guys, do give Holly a shout out, but also give her a follow when you're also subscribing to Chasing Green Arrows. Look, from the weekend,
she said football royalty. She was talking to you, wasn't she, G? I presume.
I don't know about that.
No,
but yeah, look, we've spoken to a few players that did well this weekend. We spoke about the two big derbies and obviously touched on Newcastle. One team I do want to just turn our attention to very quickly before we move on to our teams is Brighton. Getting the 3 goals at Anfield, amazing. De Zerbi's a manager. We know James, right? He's going to attack, isn't he? We know from his Sassuolo team, like they will have a go. And Trossard looks like he could be a really good option, playing on like a front two with Danny Welbeck.
I can't get my head around it, actually. Trossard's very much in that list of players who, from time to time, will come up on the radar, and usually you've had them in a previous season and they just haven't done anything, and you won't go there again. And he's kind of in that category for me. Do you believe this season does seem different, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think I do now. You're right. He's been always one of those players who perhaps you've seen a few good games, you bring him in, he trolls you, he blanks for 5-6 weeks on the trot, he underwhelms. But now he's playing in a team, both the start of this season under Potter, a more attacking Brighton, and then under Zerbi, I think we're going to get a very attacking Brighton. He's got license to get forward. Under Zerbi, he was really central. Pottery was always a little bit too wide left for me. But I think he's going to become a really good FPL option this season. And look, there's been talk that he might even get a transfer. He might even get a transfer to a big club because he's got the talent.
Brighton are a top 4 club. I mean, But yeah, it's a fair point. Under Potter, he was all over. He was playing in all sorts of positions, and it might be that he has a more defined role. And I have to admit, I'm already, because of the flag on Mitrovic, I got confused. I didn't realise Trossard was a midfielder. Even better. So my level of expertise showing there. So I was looking through my midfield options today and thinking about, I wonder if maybe. But you know what? That would be classic me. Knee-jerk reaction to a hat-trick. and then he doesn't do anything for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I'll wait and see. I'm open to try.
Not sure he's going to be on a Haaland-style run of hat-tricks coming up. But he has been, throughout the season, he has been performing at a very high level. And even under Potter, he was playing very high up, wasn't he? I noticed his contract's up at the end of the season too, and Brighton want him to sign a new one. I mean, if you're him, you become the most wanted free agent in the world at this rate, don't you? I don't think I'll be rushing to sign a new contract with anybody until later on in the year, because who knows what opportunities are going to open up for him. With De Zerbi, I mean, I haven't seen as much of his teams as you two would have. But I'm guessing from what we've seen in that opening game, the 3-3, it's quite an indication of what we'll see from Brighton. They will score goals, but I'm guessing they'll be quite leaky too, will they?
Yeah. I mean, my take would be that they will be conceding more than they did under Potter.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Looks like he'll be a back four as well. Like that Brighton team has historically played a back five under Potter, so they're moving to they're creating an extra player forward each time with the back four, and the fullbacks will still be encouraged to get forward. So yeah, I think that'll be leaky. I don't think we'll see many Sanchez Brighton goalkeeper owners this season.
I've got him. I think I might need to ditch him.
Well, let's have a look at our team, shall we? Let's move on now. We're going to see James's team, Dean's team, my team for the weekend just gone. I say weekend just gone. The game week is still running. We of course have Leicester playing tonight. We'll be off air by 8 o'clock, so stay with us for the next half an hour. But next up, we're going to have a look at Pimp My Team.
Pimp My Team.
Here we go. I just had to check that James Maddison was definitely starting.
That's yours. There we go.
This is mine. Yeah. Me first for some reason. But so James Maddison, thankfully, is actually starting tonight after everybody switched to him. So that's good news. He had a good week, 80 points with one to play. That's good news. My big three up front paying dividends. I just feel I'm going to stick with these guys because two of them are always going to turn up. And I think that's the thing I'm going to say. I thought I was going to miss Salah this week. I thought I'd be desperate to get him back in. I can't believe that Liverpool didn't turn up big style for that first game back. So no need to worry about that one. Basically.
What are your transfer plans, Dean? Because your team that 11 looks so set. Like there's not one player in that 11 I'd look at moving on. I know loosely you said last week you might look to move Bernardo on, but he's good value. It's good value.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'll tinker with the actual team, like Andreas Pereira, like he's got West Ham away. I'll take him out for it. Maybe Nico Williams. Maybe Nico, maybe Aronson. But I don't think I'll make any transfers this week. I'll probably let it roll because I don't think I need to. I had a quick look earlier on. The fixtures seem to be quite nice. The sort of manager I am. I keep faith in the lads.
James, what's your take on Perisic? Because I thought we were going to get a little bit more in terms of goal threat. He's had 2 assists, no goals so far, and a lot of game time. He's in my team, and I'm looking at possibly selling him.
Yeah, I had him at the start of the season for very much that reason. He was so devastating for Inter, and I thought with Conte, that would be with him basically putting in the crosses for Kane or whoever was getting up there, that it was going to be a little bit more in terms of returns than we've seen. And to be honest, looking at Dean's team, that was the first name that I alighted on and thought, I'm not sure if I'd have him going forward. Also because he's a certain age, so you worry about minute management in the era of 5 substitutions and that kind of thing. But it's a really solid team, no question. Yeah,
Perisic is one I'll have to definitely think about, especially like with the European fixture list and stuff, and like the potential for injuries. But luckily, I mean, there are so many defenders now you can switch out to, aren't they? That it shouldn't be too much of a headache.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. We'll have a look at my team and then James's. Again, I think I've got loads of the same players as Dean. It's a back four. I mean, that back four is identical. Different goalkeeper. I've got Mitro. It's funny seeing Dean without Mitro, knowing you're such a big fan of his and a Fulham fan. But I get it. You've got Jesus in there scoring points. Yeah. My big question is I've got 2 free transfers. It's how I move that 11th player on. And when I say 11th player, my 10 starters are set, but that midfield spot in Gordon is up for grabs, right? Each week I will be starting as it stands, Andreas, Bailey, Nico Williams, or Gordon, right? These 4 players will rotate for that player number 11. I want to make player number 11 decent because none of those are. So to do that, I need money. I can't sell Gordon, who's 5.5, and get someone in that's I want in my 11 every week. I need a 6.5 million midfielder-ish, someone like maybe a Trossard. Now, to get there, I need to downgrade a Perisic. But there are 4.5 million defenders that have a sea of green on the fixture difficulty rater. I'm looking at the likes of Zuma, Mark Gahey at Palace is 4.3. So maybe a West Ham or a Palace player comes in for Perisic, and then Gordon could go up to a Trossard, for example. That's what I'm loosely thinking with my 2 frees. The plan was Salah for De Bruyne.
Right.
The way they're both playing, I think I'm happy with De Bruyne for a while.
Yeah. What about an Everton defender?
Yeah, good call. They've conceded the fewest goals of anyone this season, I think.
That's defence, yeah. And Tarkowski and Cody obviously look great. I'm not sure what Cody. I think he's a little bit more expensive. Tarkowski's 4.4.
Is he? That's good value.
Cody is.
I planned on going Patterson at 4.1, but he got injured for Scotland on the international break.
It's yeah.
The only thing I'd say to be wary of in Everton is I saw a stat. I can't remember who posted it, but there was something like their XG against them was high. And basically, Jordan Pickford has had a great season. And how long can a goalkeeper keep you in games as much as Jordan Pickford has? It is his job, and he's very good at it. So maybe he can do it all season. But it's something to bear in mind that the Everton do give up chances, and we've seen before with this Everton team that confidence means everything. And when they lose it, they are horrendous, aren't they? Do you remember in pre-season? Was it Arsenal that they played in America or something? They were an absolute disaster zone, that defence, but they seem to have fixed themselves in time. And I think actually Frank Lampard deserves some credit, because I don't think he barely ever gets any credit, Frank Lampard, for his coaching ability. And it looks like he's doing quite a good job with this team. And their midfield looks really good.
Yeah, midfield's been massively strengthened by the likes of Onana. He's a real player. You could see him starting for Belgium. Tarkowski and Cody are centre-backs. What an improvement that is. You look at the likes of Godfrey and Holgate and Yerry Mina, always in and out that Everton team at centre-back. Well, now they've got Cody and Tarkowski, 2 proper solid Premier League defenders. Good recruitment.
Wolves regret that one, I think.
What about some hammer action there at the back? What do you think? I'm looking at the fixtures coming up, and I myself brought in Soufal, and of course he didn't play this weekend. But the other options are available. Kurt Zuma was something that people were talking about. They've got Fulham at home this weekend, Saints away the one after that. Then there's Liverpool, which is coming up kind of aubergine colour on my FDR, but I don't think it is anymore. And then after that, they've got Bournemouth. I mean, there's attractive fixtures.
Yeah, I like that shout. I think currently the favourite to replace Perisic for me is Zuma. And I don't often like picking centre-backs because you don't get the attacking threat. We'll see. We've all got these full-backs in our team for a reason. We want goals, we want assists. But with Zuma, I feel like he's a real menace in the opposition box. I often refer to him as Kurt Hang Time Zuma. He's got the Ronaldo-style hang time where he just has an extra half a second in the air, which means he wins so many headers. And because of that, we know West Ham are a really good set-piece team. When Creswell's on the pitch, good delivery. I think we'll get some goals from Zuma. So at 4.5, I do think he's probably the best option. Yeah, good shout.
Yeah, it's interesting, wasn't it? Did Emerson start the last game? I didn't see the West Ham game. Did Emerson play?
Oh, the game before last, he was dropped, and then I think Creswell started.
He on paper looks like a good pick, doesn't he? You'd think if they work to get him in.
He's got 16 minutes.
Yeah,
it's a shame that. I'd love to see Emerson in that team at 4.0. I think he'd be in all our teams, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let's have a look at James's team coming up next. Fresh off the wildcard, James.
This is freshly wildcarded, and obviously looking forward to what James Maddison can produce this evening. But as it stands, I was a bit disappointed with that. 69 points, not a bad tally, but then 46 of those are from Holland, so you can effectively kind of write those off because everyone's got those. And nobody else really came through. Richarlison was my kind of sneaky pick. I didn't have the money for Kane because I thought Salah was essential, and so now I'm reconsidering that a bit. And Richarlison had been looking so deadly before the international break, and then for Brazil, my word. And I thought Conte might just make him the main striker with Kane in a slightly more withdrawn role, and Son doing whatever it is Son's going to do when he's picked. And that might prove to be the case. Richarlison certainly did get into some interesting positions, and Son's final ball wasn't quite there.
Mm-hmm.
So that might work out. I mean, it's very natural to knee-jerk, to have that kind of knee-jerk reaction to a wild card, because you're expecting so much from this kind of this kind of supermarket trolley dash that you do through
You
the
do, yeah. You do.
that 69 points feels a bit underwhelming, but we'll see.
And there's always that temptation to ditch people just because they haven't done well on the back of it. And for somebody like Salah, you've got that difficult. He's obviously got his next two games.
Yeah, he's gone.
But his next two games, Arsenal away and Man City at home, and I think he's got no chance. But then you're like, but it is Mo Salah. Like, he has been regularly the best player in the league, especially as an FPL asset. But you kind of have to put it into context.
Dean, to put it into context, Granit Xhaka's got as many goals in Premier League this season as
wow, yeah, that's actually true, isn't it? Yeah.
A lot. And Salah's on pens.
I think that's over. I think the Salah's off.
You think the Salah's done? Do you think this is it?
Yeah.
It's been fun.
No, it's been incredible. It's been incredible, but
Wow.
Oh, anyway, sorry, yeah.
I like this wildcard, though, for the fact that it's not just for 1 week. And look, wildcard shouldn't be just like a puppy, right? You've got Zaha, Rashford, Tarkowski, who didn't have good fixtures this week, but you picked with a long-term view. Zaha and Crystal Palace have the most unbelievable run. Rashford's a nice differential, still likely to keep that number 9 spot. And as we just spoke about, Everton at the back, Tarkowski's a good pick. So you've formed what looks like a very good squad long-term here, James.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is the issue with the FPL. There are a million ways to be right before the deadline, and then it turns out that only one of them is actually going to have any bearing on life, and you're left with something that you're cursing yourself for. Why on earth did you go with Rashford or Michael Zaha? Zaha's another of those players in that category of players who everyone else enjoys and has success with, but if I ever get them in, it never works out. But I've got him in this time. Maddison is same category for me. We'll see if it works out, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it looks fine on paper. It looks reasonable on screen there, but I don't know. Fingers crossed for game week 10.
Dean, I was listening to a well-known podcast, Ranks FC, last week, and you guys were tipping. I think I'm right in saying Richarlison to lead the line for Brazil, and it does look like he's going to be Brazil's number 9 at a World Cup. As an FPL option, I think James has got a nice differential here. Conte clearly rates him to be putting him in that starting 11 in the biggest game of the season to date against Arsenal, and he still delivered the assist with 5 points. What do you think to Richarlison, and do you think he will be leading that line for Brazil?
Yeah, I think he's got a great chance of leading the line, and I think that, that's a massive honour because Brazil are basically the favourites to win this World Cup. I mean, take that with what that exactly means, we don't know, but what we do know is that they've got so many luxuries within that squad, and they've got so many attacking players. But he's right at the front of the queue. I mean, Jesus will be up there too, I'm sure, and they've got a lot of other competition. But Richarlison has been bought for a lot of money too by Tottenham. And this isn't a player like Jed Spence who's been brought in with a long-term vision and is as a club signing and somebody that they can move on with. This is somebody that they wanted in right now to help with the depth issue of making an impact and making sure Tottenham remain one of the top 4 teams in the country. And Richarlison's going to do that, and he's going to fire. It's just a case of finding the right role in the team. I think that they really miss Kulusevski at the weekend. I think whenever Kulusevski's not there, Tottenham miss him. But they've got to find a way of getting the best tune out of Richarlison. And I think that is difficult, like James mentioned there about like what Harry Kane's role. They've got to find, because even like since Richarlison came in, even the dynamic between Son and Kane isn't the same. So if you've upset that, which was your go-to method of getting goals, you've got to find a way of getting this other thing to work. And that's probably Conte's biggest problem at the moment, beyond the fact that they are one of the most boring teams to watch in the Premier League.
Oh, James, I'm going to ask you about who you think might win the World Cup in a minute. But that Brazil front 5 could be Richarlison down the middle. You've got Rafinha on the right, Vinicius Jr. on the left. We could see 2 attacking mids as Neymar and Paqueta as well. What a front 5 that will be. It's going to be loads of fun, that Brazil team.
Yeah. I mean, it generally is.
Yeah,
it generally is. We've seen them go in with amazing lineups before. I think was it 2006 when they were talking about the magic quadrilateral and how they were all going to rip everything up, and it didn't work out for them. But I don't know who's going to win the World Cup, to be honest, Johnny. It's
won't be the same without having Italy in it, though, will it? Well, we've had the last 2 without Italy. It's a bit rubbish.
Same, because they weren't at the last one either.
It's the same. Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame. Clearly, it's a shame. You want Italy at the World Cup. It's fantastic that they will be at the tournament that matters, the Nations League final next summer. But without them, if I have to, if I had to have a guess, let's have France to blow up spectacularly in the group stage, England to crash out in the quarterfinals. I'm just saying all the obvious stuff here.
Germany to get to the semis.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Who's going to be? Is there going to be a wild card in there? A team that surprises everybody?
It might be
I've
like a
gone-
Denmark or something like that.
Oh,
Denmark
yeah.
looking in good shape. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. If you want to say Brazil are the favourites, I mean, I'm not going to argue.
I mean,
with that.
Argentina. If we're going
Argentina, could this
Argentina,
be the Messi narrative World Cup?
the big Messi narrative, like Messi one last Ballon d'Or, wins the World Cup, like one last swan song. Like, yeah, I wouldn't be totally against seeing that. I've got to admit.
I'm with John here. Spain's midfield is class. They were the only team that really
got a
gave
goal
Italy
scorer, though,
problems.
have
They've still got Morata, yeah. I mean,
Morata
but
is their only.
they didn't have a goal scorer in the Euros, and they caused Italy real problems. Morata came on against Italy in the semis and caused us problems and got the goal. But I think Spain at 8-1, they're like fifth favourites. I've put a little bit of money on Spain. I just think they've got the best manager. Luis Enrique is the best manager at the World Cup, and managers win World Cups as well as number nines. And
Why do you think he's the best manager, Jenny?
I just think we really struggle with international football, right? When you look across the board and go, the top teams don't have elite managers. You look at Portugal, you could say the same for England. If Gareth Southgate was given the opportunity to manage a club side in England, who would he manage? Well, we can tell you, Middlesbrough, surely he'd do better than that now, but he's not going to go and manage. He's not going to walk into a job at a top 4 team. And most of these international managers, you'd say the same for. Yet Luis Enrique, we saw from his time at Barca, yeah, sure, he's not quite Pep levels, but I don't think he's far off. And I think Luis Enrique is the only elite manager that I can name off the top of my head going to the World Cup. If I'm saying the top 10 managers in the world, I reckon 9 of them are club managers, and Luis Enrique is probably in the top 10.
It's a hot take. Damien says Brazil. Haley says Holland. Eddie goes with Croatia.
Oh, nice.
A. Dawson says Holland. I'm not sure I'd trust Holland enough, but
Van Gaal, Holland manager again. Love that.
That is a very interesting shout, and I guess that would be the counterpoint to your Luis Enrique argument, because he's a manager who's not going to just sit there and just do the usual kind of national team selector business. He's actively tweaking with the tactics, doing some really interesting things. Shut Holland down in a recent game. I'm sorry, shut De Bruyne down rather in a recent game. I think. I think Holland are a great shout. And we've talked about FPL players that we have a kind of muscle memory about. I think a lot of us feel that way about Holland as a entity in terms of their chances of winning it. But when you look at their players, maybe would the question mark be at the back? I'm not sure. It seems strange to say that now, but maybe.
It possibly is, yeah. I mean, Van Dijk, the season he's having, isn't probably filling them with confidence. The other thing, the scariest thing actually about the World Cup is Erling Haaland isn't going. So he's got a month off. Imagine him the first game back.
What does he do for that month off? Because
he stands in his garden just scoring as many goals as he can. I don't know, yeah.
So far as well, he's only had about three touches. I mean, he's had more than that. He's had 13 touches per goal is the stat. But
is that the stat? Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm just looking it up. Leeds away, December 26th. First game back, Erling Haaland, fresh as a daisy.
Yeah. Salah will also have a month off.
Salah will too, but it doesn't matter anymore, does it? No.
We've moved on.
James just told us that's over. That era's done.
Should mention Hansi Flick, special shout out. A few in the chat rightly picking me up on that. And Nuclear Atoms for one. You're right. Like Hansi Flick is the other one you'd say for what we saw from him at Bayern. Yeah, of course. He's in that elite bracket as well.
Yeah, he's transformed them.
Yeah, he does. Germany have got a lot of work to do again. And a bit like Spain, who's the number 9? Sorry, James, say again.
No, I was making a rude joke about Yogi Love and saying
censored.
We'll move on from the World Cup stuff, but it does seem like the chat are perhaps up for it. And Dean and I have flirted with the idea of maybe doing a little bit of World Cup content around the FIFA fantasy game, which neither of us have ever played, but we're going to give it a go this season. So stay tuned on Chasing Green Arrows during the World Cup for some I don't even know what the game's called. Fantasy football FIFA.
How does it even work? Surely you don't buy the players. You're just allowed like 3 from each nation or something.
Yeah, I guess so. I think you get more than one transfer per round after the groups if it's anything like the Champions League game.
Is it already up?
Oh, I don't think so. I guess they'll wait for the squads to be announced so then they can do player prices.
Yeah, that would make sense now you put it like that.
I mean, the UEFA game is fun, which I have played. You kind of will get the 1 or 2 transfers each round. So let's say you're in a group of 4, you got 3 games to play. And then after the knockouts, they do things like they give you 2 or 3 or 4 transfers each time, knowing your team could go out. And then by the time you get to the final, you might struggle for 11 because I think they only give you a couple of transfers. So you've got to back teams in the semi will get to the final.
Right. I just want to tell you that the FIFA World Cup TM fantasy allows you to emulate Didier Deschamps, Jogi Löw, and Chite. I'm not sure what Jogi Löw's going to be doing.
Yeah.
Oh, this is 2018. That's why I'm looking at. Check the date, friend. Yeah, so it's not up yet. But the last one. Yeah.
The last one's there if you want to practice.
How far would Qatar go in the World Cup if they had Haaland? Wow. Okay. I mean, they'd probably get out the group. Get out the group. Qatar have got a difficult group as well, I think.
They would get out the group, yeah. There should be a rule, shouldn't there? If you're good, if you're so good and your country hasn't made it, then you've got to go and play for someone else.
There are sports that have a rest of the world selection that all the countries that don't qualify send. You can pick basically a representative at 11 or 15 or whatever sport it is. Ice hockey, I'm sure, do this for some tournaments, and that would be amazing. Can you imagine if there was a rest of the world or a DNQ team?
This is great.
Holland and possibly 1 or 2 Italians as well.
Yeah, I'd go. It'd be the Italian team from the Euros final that won, and probably just put Haaland and Salah in there. There you go.
Yeah. There you go. Sorted.
Let us know in the chat if you've got any names that aren't going to the World Cup that you're most disappointed about that you're not going to see. So yeah, sure, we've mentioned Haaland and the Italians and Salah. Any other players you're really unfortunately we're just not going to see at the FIFA World Cup this time? Put it in the chat. Give us some inspiration there as well. Good to see FPL Spartans in the chat as well. I've seen some nice poetry from you Spartans. We'll try and bring a couple of them up on screen. I'm sure on Twitter you put something out earlier which linked to James with a very sweet poem which we'll have to show. Nice Colombia with Diaz and Sinistera. Yeah, John saying James McLean. John again saying John McGinn. Oh, I don't know about that. Vindy with John McGinn. John McGinn getting a lot of love. Interesting.
Terrible season, isn't it?
Yeah, Villa's new captain and the burden of that captain's armband. We saw it with Tyrone Mings. Seems to be affecting McGinn as well, not playing too well. Ibra, Kulu, Mahrez, Odegaard. Yeah, Odegaard's a big one. The Norway captain, of course.
Yes,
James, I want to turn our attention just to FPL for the final 5 minutes. We spoke a little bit about your team, your management style. Have you been inspired by others, certain experts? Because I feel like your management style in FPL is a little bit maverick. You often will like to go against the grain.
In what way?
Well, I've been on the show with you, for example, when we've looked at who everyone's captaining, and you've gone, I don't want to go Salah. Who would you go for, KDB or Bernardo Silva? You're always thinking outside the box.
Am I? But then if you look at my
so.
selections, I've generally just followed the herd. I mean, I talked a good game on a Thursday, but come to the deadline, there'd be a certain amount of panic. I mean, it's very kind of you to call me a maverick.
A little bit maverick, I think I said.
of the FPL community, probably. I think I'm a little bit scattergun. I don't like to plan too far ahead because I get confused. I'm very impulsive. I think nothing of 8-point hits, but I am trying. The kind of lesson that I draw at the end of every season is don't chase last weekend's points, essentially, which is what I'm always doing. That's happened, and it might be that what you bought that player for hasn't happened yet, but it will happen. Just don't chase last weekend's points. That's I guess.
I would say I agree with that, but I'm looking at buying Lissandro Trossard this week, so yeah, I might be guilty of that one myself. Yeah. Dean, what about you? What sort of manager would you say you are?
Well, I was very flaky, as you know, and this season I'm trying to change, and I'm trying to grow as much. I'm trying to keep a settled team. I'm trying not to be swayed to jump off of people like Gabby Jesus when I've seen with my own eyes that this does not seem to be a player that's going to fall off a cliff anytime soon. And I would have stopped taking point hits because I always do that. I've, as you know, from doing this show with me at the end of last season, I don't really plan ahead. So I'm trying to do that. I'm not like you. I haven't got a spreadsheet going. Like that's never going to happen. I don't I won't be doing that. But I do look ahead a little anyway. So yeah, I'm just trying to take it a bit more seriously, really. Especially like in my mini league, dodging this curry zone. James, in my mini league with my friends, the bottom four. There's 14 of us in the league, and the bottom four, that's the curry zone. So whoever's the bottom four, it's you take everyone else out for a curry, and you pay for all the drinks all night. It's an expensive night out. It's an expensive night out.
How many points are you off the bottom four at the
Well,
moment?
I'm fine this season. I'm doing well. But last season I had a bit of a mare, and I only avoided the curry zone about 2 weeks from the end of the season to get out of it. And I think the lads ended up spending about 250 quid each on the curry and beers a couple of months ago when we went out. So it's not the end of the world, but I'd rather just be having a free night out rather than it costing me a couple of £100.
I remember you coming back from the curry a few months ago, and because it was obviously all drinks included, you just went wild. And I remember you saying, "Oh, I made a really bad transfer last night," and I think you made it like either when you were out or hungover the following morning.
So the other thing, I'll give it
don't drink in FPL.
Don't drink in FPL. Yeah, that's the one good thing about kids. You don't drink as much anymore. Well,
yeah, until they get
one
older,
day they might drive me to it.
Yeah. Good stuff. I've enjoyed our chat. James, just before we end, in terms of like mini leagues and stuff, what's the big thing for you? Like, do you have certain TV personalities or friends or mini leagues that you're trying to beat? Because I'm guessing there's always a bit of rivalry between you and Jules as well.
There's no friends in FPL for me. You park all of that when you sign your team up. It's all about those kind of FPL show. The girls, God bless them, Kelly, Jules. Mark's, I mean, it's nice when I'm above Mark Southerns because, and it happens strangely.
You are this year.
And I think last year as well, because he had a strange season, but he knows too much. We talked about, too much knowledge. I think Mark sometimes knows too much. But yeah, if I could beat Kelly and Jules, I think we'd all be happy. It
means you've had a good season, really, doesn't it? If you finished above them.
Yeah, they're pretty good, those two.
Yeah, I remember Kelly last season. I think she beat like half the FPL experts that were coming on the show. I think she finished above them. Yeah. She had a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know what her rank is this year. We might have to ask Kelly and Jules and James to join a maybe version of a Chasing Green Arrows league.
It's a Christmas special now.
You could do the bottom four have to pay for cocktails or something.
Yes,
I like that very much.
What you need. Yeah, I recommend don't finish in the bottom four.
Yeah,
it's great motivation to keep you going.
Guys, before we leave, I think I'm going to have to end with a quote from Spartans. I saw a nice little poem flash up on screen, and it goes, "Last week, Gianni and Dean left us in the limbo, but today they revealed a star guest as a legend that is Jimbo." Absolutely love that. Thank you, FPL Spartans. James, can we twist your arm at some point in the not too distant, maybe later in the season, to come back on? Have you enjoyed yourself?
Yeah, no, it's been brilliant, and I've learned so much. So any time, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Madison hat trick.
Yeah, we need to go and tune in for that now, don't we? No, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. It was good fun.
Thanks, Dean. Cheers, Jenny.
Good stuff. Thank you, guys. Well, he's been Dean, he's been James, and we've been Chasing Green Arrows. Good night, guys.